Hello, and today we're going to be solving a system of equations given by a word problem in three different ways. We're going to be solving it by graphing the two lines, by substitution, and by elimination. Now, I have all my work done out, so it'll be a little bit faster, and I'm just going to kind of go through my work just so you can kind of see like where my solutions come from. Now, first, how did I get those first few equations? Now, how I got this first equation was fairly straightforward. Now we know that there's green aliens and blue aliens. And so these two things, that's all of the aliens we have. So we know that each of them has two heads and that there's a total of 88. So we know that 2 times the total number of aliens is 88 because each of them has two heads. So we know that the total number of aliens must be 44. And so that's where we get this equation. Now we have this equation that comes from the second sentence. We know the total number of feet is 120, and we know that the green aliens have 2 feet, the blue aliens have 3 feet. We know that 2 times the green aliens' feet plus 3 times the blue aliens' feet is 120. And this equation right here is just kind of a more convenient way of writing that, and so is this. Now, how you solve it by graphing is you would graph this, and you would graph this, and you would see where they intersect, because the point where they intersect is the point where both of these things are true at the same time, where, both of these basically return the same point. They return the same B and G value, and that's what we want. So now I'm going to go over to Desmos, I'll share my screen, and I'll show you where that happens. Now, here I graph the equations. Now, that might look a little bit weird, but that's because in this case, I am, instead of B, I have Y, and instead of G, I have X. That's just because Desmos won't let me use G and B. It just lets me use Y and X when I'm graphing stuff. So that's how I did it. So if we graph these two things, we get these two lines. And what's convenient about Desmos is it actually shows the point where they intersect. Now the point where they intersect is 1232, which means that x is equal to 12 and y is equal to 32. And in this case, we know that x is g, so we know that g is 12, and we know that b is y, and so y is 32. And so that's how you figure it out using graphing. Now we'll get back to my screen. Now the second method is not too difficult because we actually have a convenient way of writing b. Now if we want to solve it by substitution, what we do is we solve for one of the variables and we plug it into the other equation. Now here we have b is 44 minus g, and we have the second equation. So what we can do is we can take this 44 minus g, since it's equal to b, and we can just plug it into this part of the equation right here, this b, because we know that b is 44 minus g. We could just take it and we can either plug it into the left-hand side or the right-hand side. No, just the left-hand side. I'm being dumb. So now, basically, all we'll have left are g's, and that's how I do it here. So we have 3 times what b is equivalent to, which is 44 minus g, is equal to the right-hand side, which is 120 minus 2g. Now, if we work out the algebra, 3 times 44 is 132. 3 times minus g is minus 3g. And so if we solve this, I'll just go through a little bit of the algebra here. We end up with 12 minus 3g is minus 2g, so 12 equals g. And since we know that b is equal to 44 minus g, we know that b is equal to 44 minus 12, which is 32. Now I'm going to switch over to board number 2, and I'll show you the other way you can solve it, which is by elimination. Now we take the very first equation we were given, which is 2g plus b is 88, and we basically just distribute all the terms. So what we can do here is, since we have 2g plus 2b equals 88 and 2g plus 3b is 120, what we can do is we can get rid of the g's just by subtracting the second equation from the first. And what you end up getting is these g's just go away. You end up with 2g minus 2g, which is just 0. Then you end up with 2b minus 3b, which is just minus b. And then you end up that's equal to 88 minus 120, which is minus 32. So you end up with minus b is equal to minus 32, so b equals 32. Now that we know that b equals 32, we can solve for g. Since b is equal to 44 minus g, we know that since b equals 32, 32 is equal to 44 minus g. So minus 12 is equal to minus g, so 12 is equal to g.